Here we see displayed some of the items that I've made over the past few months. Some of them I've actually just shown you in my last display. The one on the left there is the anchor, and going towards the end there's the one I showed you, which has got the clips in it, the anchor with the bubbles, the anchor chain and the bubbles. Next to it, blue octopus. Then you come to the fleece anchor. Next to the seahorses in seaweed or eelgrass, the natural habitat. I even found out they live off the south coast of England. I didn't even know that, so there you go, I learned something by doing this. And of course the treasure chest, always a fun thing to do. The next one is dolphins diving, leaving splash marks, and then you're coming up to that's a diver's helmet. I'll show you better pictures of these as we go on, but just to give you an idea of the sort of things I do. The next ones can't be seen very well there, but there are a couple of lobsters, octopus, and another dolphin. And on the board here, I'll just give you a better view of this. These are the basic things you have to have. You have to have sort of a mission statement. I mean, I've actually failed a number of job interviews. Probably should have got the jobs, not been big-headed, but I had the right CV because I didn't read the mission statement of the place, and everybody's into a mission statement, aren't they? They're looking to see that you've actually looked into it. So for me, my mission statement would be Crafty Blokes, that's me, like Culligan, choose a theme. For me, think of gifts, think of price, plan your basic ideas, then make things in batches. And the other tip I'd give people who want to do this is don't give up, because there's a lot of knockers out there. There's a lot of people will misunderstand you, think that you're just sat on your backside doing nothing, when in actual fact you're pouring out stuff every day, writing, creating, making things all the time. But don't let them put you off, basically, because everyone has to start somewhere. Okay, at the top of that I've got some more things I've made. That's some seahorses. Next to that I've made an octopus. We've got more seahorses, more anchors, and a treasure chest. So the idea is, the whole point of these things, well, what is the point of them? Well, you've got to think to yourself, who is going to be interested in these things? Well, I had no idea, so I had to do my own little market research and discovered when we took them to various 1 or 2 church craft fairs and things like Christmas fairs, they're not really a seasonal theme, are they? But we live in a maritime nation, we live in Britain, and basically you'll get people who are looking for a gift for someone, or who have already bought something for someone, who are looking for a bag for that person. And we also found, in particular, it was young people who were interested in these, and it caught their eye. And also, I would also not rule out what I call the dads and lads, because at any particular craft fair you'll find there's a lot of dads who have childcare responsibility. Perhaps he's just been down the gym, played five-a-side, and he'll be given responsibility to look after the kids. And they do go to craft fairs. You would be surprised how many blokes do go to them. And if they see another bloke doing something to do with craft, in the same way as a joiner is an expert at what they do, they'll often come up to you just out of the fact that you're another bloke, and you can get a couple of words chatting. We don't say a lot really, but it's their kids who like the stuff, and then you can basically just say, well, how did you make that, and things like that. And that's basically what I do. But you've got to be very price sensitive. No one is going to give you more than a certain amount for these, because remember, the materials are not expensive, and it's your labour. You're going to have to forget about that, because people will not look into your labour costs. Everybody knows, for instance, if you put a car in for servicing, well, what the labour costs are for that. It would be nice if people respected the labour it took to make one of these things, but it's not going to happen. Here we see it a bit closer up of the view of the things that I've made. And with this particular item, the first one here, you can't see all the stitching unless I bring it up right up close for you to see that there. So you can see I've really gone with the theme, and I've even used a very colourful bejewelled sort of from one of those dazzle sort of box things. And the bubbles here we have were obviously, you know, put for that purpose by me, and the sort of things you can easily get hold of at craft shops. And the others to the left of it there is a chain going down into the sea. So you basically have a theme, and this is the one which has got the press studs at the top of it, and at the back of this one here I've also done a running line of stitches down the bottom there using pattern stitches, and it's felt. And usually they do say to you that this material has got one side of it that stretches very well and one side which doesn't, and you have to look at the side that stretches, etc. Yes, that can be true with gift bags and things like that. You've got to know which side is the stretchy side and which side is less stretchy. Depends what you're making, but you live and learn on these ones. And with the octopus, it's the same thing here. And basically, there's like a sort of a simple kit you can buy, which comes with these little sort of fake jewels in them, and they're just useful for eyes. While I'm on that subject, I would say to you, never ever use those goggle eye items, because they come off too easily, and even if you glue them, you've always got to think that with young kids everything will go into their mouth, and basically those goggle eyes that move around will be the first thing they swallow. So you've got to make sure that all your items are safe to be used with young kids, and remember they're very curious and run around as I did when I was little, because I was like completely hyperactive and like running into everything, banging my head on everything. I've got the stitches to show it in the back of my skull. So basically I was like into climbing trees and running around, and quite a feral kid really, and even as a teenager very sort of feral. I used to like cycle, I'm not joking, 120 miles and stuff like that on a racing bike on my own, and that's the type of person I am. I like doing things to the max. This is a closer sort of view of the things I made here. That's a diver's helmet. I did some research on that to try and get the shape right. Some of the things on it obviously aren't super accurate, but basically it's the sort of how it looks art ways. And then the left of it, you've got some bubbles coming off it there, and with another anchor on the theme there. And that's my lobster. I did go down to South Devon some years ago on holiday, and I saw the lobsters, because they keep them alive in these tanks with the salt water, and they have bubbles going through the tanks and stuff like that on the port, so you can actually see them fresh and alive. And there's another lobster there. Probably these ones have probably been cooked, I imagine, haven't they, at that colour, but there you go. Hopefully you don't see an octopus that colour in the real sea, but I'm just running with a theme here, and the same with the dolphin. And of course dolphins, porpoises, as you know, are very playful creatures, and I wanted to show with the stitch work there the sort of simple splash effect. And I'm not saying that what I'm doing is some sort of high form of art, because it isn't. It's made to a theme, and it's done to my skills, my limited skills, but I'm trying to use what I've got, not what I haven't got. And the thing to do with when you're doing something creative, whether it's writing, craft, music, is to recognise your own limitations, because they are the things that's your strength. You know what you're limited to, and therefore stick to that. If you go off that track, then basically you are going to probably get a lot of flack for it. So just stay positive, stay focused, and that's how I manage to do these items. I mean, you have good days and you have really bad days, especially if you've gone through redundancy, etc. So the thing to do is to basically do something useful with your life, and this is something I would do forever now, basically, because I've learned a lot, and it also really does sort of calm you down. The ones I've got on the wall there, quite like these ones. The difference between these ones and the other ones, as you've already probably noticed, is they've got drawstrings on them, and we'll talk about that later. But basically that's a very simple theme, that one, which is the anchor. If I take you a bit closer to it, if you don't mind my wobbly focusing, you can see from a side view I've actually put what is called, I do believe, a satin stitch onto that. And basically you're forcing the machine to do this pattern stitch along the anchor there and along here. And you might, it's not necessarily totally accurate to scale and size, because if you did do a real one, it may not have this shape anyway, because they have different functions depending on whether or not they're holding a boat against a running tide, etc., which is a very dangerous situation to be in if you are in a boat, if you haven't got the right type of anchor, because I did find that can drag the anchors along, and sometimes even have to cut them. Now these stitches here that I've got here, which I showed you before, are meant to obviously represent waves, and again you can see they're actual pattern stitches. So basically I've just adapted pattern stitches that are readily available already on many different brands of machines. And again, I've got the satin stitch there. With the satin stitch there, you can see it's got a certain width to it, and there's a way of doing them which I can show you later basically. But you've got to remember with these particular type of stitches, because they're so dense and they use a lot of material, you've got to do a test run first before you do them. And the biggest friend you've got, and this is what my partner really helps me with, is she helps me with unpicking stitches when they don't work out. So you need to have like a stitch cutter. Along the side of this seaweed or eelgrass, whatever it represents, with the seahorses, I've got another pattern stitch here with like a sort of a herringbone pattern. And every particular machine you use will have their own strengths and their own weaknesses, and you've got to go with the machine itself. And I do like these pattern stitches here on the seahorses. They're like, see, those sort of like satin stitch diamonds. And you can, these are all done on a machine, you can run stitches around the inside of an object such as a seahorse. And going on to the other ones, here I've done here, you can see I've used a slightly different, instead of using the diamonds like on that one, I've used like a, looks like sort of a step, doesn't it? And getting up close to that. Different coloured eyes for the seahorses as well, and for the anchors of course you can use different type of press material type stud things. And again these kits are readily available, and the idea is you're using pieces of material, pieces of felt, pieces of fleece, so it's fleece and felt. And this particular gift, purse gift, because I have to keep taking you back to this one, but the idea is if you want something that's slightly more expensive, it's going to take more time to make, instead of being made out of fleece, this is actually made out of felt. So that's felt, and the top materials on that is felt as well. Okay, it gives it a little bit more toughness, but the trouble with the felt is because it's not stretching the same way that fleece is, i.e., naturally you can put a drawstring bag on it. You're going to need to put some sort of fasteners on. So I was on a very steep learning curve how to put these press studs on, and just a brief mention about them, you've got like a male end and a sort of a female end to them, and you basically have to line them up. But it's not a question of just lining them up. If you look inside this, there's a double layer. You have to cut out another layer of fleece. I'll try and get the focus back in. Cut out another layer of fleece, and then you have to yourself stitch that little layer on. I use a machine, and then hand sew in and out along the actual button there. If I try and get close up, I know it's a bit blurred, but you see there's like lots of little sort of holes around the side of the stud, and you have to go around it, either clockwise or anti-clockwise, sewing in and out and sewing out. If you catch it right, it shouldn't come through the other side. If you have a nice sort of like running stitch going through. Of course, not all of mine were perfect, as you can probably see from this one behind, one of my earlier ones. You can see the stitching coming through there until I learned properly how to do like a running stitch that basically doesn't go through. But however, I'm a very functional person. In other words, I like things to have a function, and I wasn't particularly bothered about appearance at the back of this item. I just wanted it to be a functional, tough item that would stand the normal wear and tear. But as I said earlier, to make sure everything you make is childproof, because they will absolutely test things to the max. If you want to test a product, just give it to a load of kids basically, because they'll bash it to bits. And any particular weakness in the product will come out in about 10 seconds. So I learned that as well, because I was like that when I was a kid, because I was used to rip everything apart, toys, telescopes. You give me something, or I saved up for something, I always took it to bits and ripped it to bits to see how it worked. But I have used that skill to some extent in this new idea of mine, because I would say, and my partner will back me up on this one, every single machine that I've bought has been broken. Some of them seriously broken, and we'll come on to that later. Some of them to the point where the timing mechanism on them was out. There were missing bobbins. There were loads of them were seized inside, and I mean totally seized inside. Never used since 1957, and I'm not joking. Some of them were all the workings were seized. Some of them were missing parts. Some of them had broken parts. but every single one of them so far, touch wood, I managed to get them going. Some of them, it was the wiring was dangerous, so I had to look into the wiring side of it, and I found some way around it. Sometimes I couldn't get every single one of the functions going, and I had to change motors on some of the machines, but that's not a big deal when you consider that if something's been around since 1958 and not used, that's older than I am. We're talking about something which is over 50 years old, coming on for like 55 years since somebody plugged it in. Okay, so going back to what I said before, let's just recap on the theme of what you do, how you get started. That's me, Crafty Blokes. Choose a theme. Mine at the moment is marine. Think of gifts, think of price, plan your basic ideas, and make things in batches. Now, getting back to me, I'll just put the camera on the stand again.